morning. I understand that I am between you and lunch. Is that correct? All right. So I'll be mindful of that as we go through our conversation. I'm really excited to be here with all of you today. We're going to take a bit of a turn and talk about probably something you haven't been talking about a lot at the conference so far. So one of the things I need from you is I need your engagement. I like to move. I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. I might ask you to call some things out. Can you all do that for me? Thank you. That makes me feel so good. It makes it less boring. You don't want to just hear me talking at you for an hour. So I'm really excited to be here. Is there anyone in here who does not have a cell phone? You can laugh at that. Right? Of course, you all have a cell phone. So I want to start by asking you to do something for me. If you would take out your cell phone, I would love for you to think of someone that you care about. Someone who makes a difference for you. Could be someone on your staff, in your office. It could be a colleague, could be a loved one. And I want you to send them a quick, short text. And I want you to just let them know that you appreciate them. I'm going to give you about 90 seconds to do that. Just send them a quick text right now, out of the blue, just letting them know that you're thinking about them and you appreciate them. Right. I like to give 90 seconds. I know it doesn't typically take 90 seconds to send a text, but sometimes we need to figure out what to say. So I'll be interested in hearing if any of you get a quick response to your text. Did anyone get a response? Was your response positive? I love that. Thank you. Every time I do this activity, there is a response of concern from one or multiple people. Should I call for someone? Do you need help? Need assistance now? Right? What does that tell you? Yeah, we don't spend enough time expressing how we feel about other people. We don't spend enough time sharing with them how important they are. And they likely don't spend enough time expressing that to you either. So, we're going to be talking about burnout, but we're going to do it from a different lens today. I'm going to ask you to do some things and to try on some things to work with me for a bit. One and only other thing I'll really ask of you today is to be open, to be here with me, to be present, and to just step into the possibilities of what if. Okay, we'll talk a little bit more about that. There it is. Okay. So, did anyone else receive a response back? Yes. Was it positive? Yeah. Would you like to share it with us? Oh, great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Anyone else? I'm not going to say you've got some work to do, but I'm just saying. No. Yes, over here. Let, let's eat. All right. Well, thank you for doing that. It's just a little bit of an illustration about the opportunity that we have in front of us. So, we're going to talk a little bit in our time today. We're going to talk a little bit about the realities facing us today. We're going to talk a little bit about burnout. And I say a little because you all know what burnout is. You don't need a whole deep dive into burnout. So, we're not going to do that today. We're going to spend our time, though, exploring the role of leadership and emotional intelligence in burnout. Can you relate? Yeah. Call out some of the hats for me that you wear. What are some of your different roles and hats? Physician, mom, provider, spouse, firefighter, caregiver, therapist, right? Counselor, all of those things. We all wear so many hats. It really is just a part of who we are, right? Lots of different hats for all of us. The hat I want you to wear today is that of a leader. So we are going to dive into our conversation today using the lens of a leader. All of you are leaders in this room. It doesn't matter if you have the formal title of leader or not. You don't have to be on the medical executive committee or anything like that. If you're sitting in this room, then you're a leader. So I want you to use that lens as we go through our conversation today. Burnout is real. It's something that affects all of us, but it doesn't just affect us. It affects those around us. So I hope that you are not one of the 32% who said that their mental health has suffered over the past 18 months. I hope that you are not one of the 30% who don't find what you do as rewarding as you used to. And I really hope that you're not one of the 90% who feel that their medical facility is not effectively addressing burnout. But if you are, if you happen to fall into any of those buckets or know people who do, I'm going to ask you to just explore some other options. As we go through our discussion today, we'll talk more about that. So what is burnout? We know that burnout is what happens as a result of continuous, ongoing, cumulative stress. And when we get to that point, it manifests externally in some specific ways. There's a colleague that I was working with for some time, and she used to tell me how exhausted she was, that she was just tired. Even when she felt like she had gotten enough sleep, she couldn't seem to shake the fact that she just was feeling exhausted all of the time, right? We might also see this depersonalization in the form of you don't feel like you have any more to give for yourself, for others. People talk about empathy all the time. I've had people say to me, I don't have any more. I'm tapped out, right? You could be feeling like, despite your best efforts and doing everything that you know to do, that you still don't feel like you're achieving what you want to achieve. These are all signs of burnout. It's really important that we tune into ourselves and recognize it when it's happening, because that's the only way we can take action and do something about it. So, lots of factors contributing to burnout. We're going to talk just a little bit about the system level factors, but then we're going to move on to some other factors that I really want you to focus on today. And I want you to take those away from our conversation today. So I love this. Burnout is not the result of a deficiency in resilience, right? How many of you hate the term resilience? I know a lot of physicians who do. They're like, don't talk to me about resilience. So when I think about resilience, I think about you've been run over by a truck. And resilience is me going, how quickly are you going to get back up? Right? It's testing your bounce back factor, your ability to come back after something awful has happened or you've sustained a series of ongoing stresses. So yes, that is accurate. Yes, that is true. But we're still gonna shift, because even though we know that burnout originates at the system level, it impacts all of you. It impacts every single one of you. It impacts your families. Does anyone believe that burnout stays at the hospital or at your office? Absolutely not. It goes with you wherever you go. So given that it goes with us, it's up to us to keep looking, to keep stretching, to keep searching for opportunities to do something different. When we ask physicians about what's really driving their burnout, these are the things that they tell us. And you all probably know this personally. So I was working in healthcare right at the time we were transitioning into electronic medical records. And if our physicians could have thrown the computer out of the window, in fact, I think one did throw it somewhere, not out of the window, but he certainly made a good effort. But that has been an ongoing source of stress. But guess what? It's not leaving. It's not going anywhere. Right. So we got to figure out how to navigate this differently. We've got to figure out how to live in this world that is a bit chaotic right now. So all of these contribute to burnout. Yes, we get that. But I'm more interested in what happens with all of you. And I would love, this is where I want you to talk to me. What happens when we are experiencing burnout? What's the impact of that on either yourself, those around you, your patients and your families, potentially your loved ones? Somebody shout out, what's the impact of burnout? Say that again. Yeah, you get irritable, right? You get moody. What else? Like cannabis. Just saying, it's available. Decreased empathy is real because the very people that you are caring for expect what? Empathy, right? But when you are running on E, it's very difficult to replenish that. They like to say that you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So, all of the things. What about family? What's the impact on your family? Yeah, decreased empathy from them for you, right? What else? Which could be a good or a bad thing, right? Depending on how you look at it and where you are. Absolutely. Divorce. Absolutely. We know that one of the things we're seeing is an increased suicide rate among physicians. Interestingly enough, you would think that that would be attributed to burnout. However, when we look deeper in the research, burnout is not really the main contributing factor. It tends to be depression. But then there are some cross studies going, well, is burnout contributing to depression? So there's a lot there, but there's a lot happening. And I think the point here is that it matters. It matters for you. And we, as a healthcare system, have to do something about it. I don't know about you, but I sort of think our system's broken. Do you all agree? Yeah. I think our system's broken and I don't see it being fixed in the near term. Do y'all also agree with that? All right. So here's my challenge to all of you. If we are in a broken system, burnout is system driven and system originated and initiated. Are we then just at the mercy of this broken system and we can't do anything about it? I refuse to accept that. I don't accept that for me. I don't accept that for all of you. I think we have to do something different. We've got to keep seeking. We've got to keep searching. We cannot just expect all of you to continue operating at peak performance level in a system that is subpar. Okay. So we're going to talk about that. But first, I want to know where you are on the burnout curve. And this is going to be a little bit different. So, what I'd like you to do is scan this QR code. It's going to take you to a short survey. I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to complete your survey. The results are for you. If you want a copy of your results, then you can certainly put your email address and it will send you that copy. But otherwise, this information is just for you. And it's going to return you information in a series of buckets that we're going to talk about here shortly. Go with your gut. Don't think too hard about the questions. Just respond. All right, you should be getting close to finishing that up. And you'll notice that the results return in four categories. We're going to talk about those four categories in just a minute. But the results really are for you to begin at any point when we want something to change or we seek something different. We have a goal, a dream, a desire. It begins with awareness, always. It begins with your awareness of where things are and a level of awareness that you want something to be different. So I like infusing assessments so that you can see where you are. You then get to have the decision of this choosing where you want things to go. So we talked about some system level factors of burnout, and now I want to talk about you, and I want to talk about the individual level factors and some opportunities that you have in order to really impact burnout. This is really important because, again, I simply refuse to believe that there is nothing any of you can do but sit back and twiddle your thumbs while we wait for some system to get fixed. I'd love for that to happen, but I'm not holding my breath. I don't think you are either. So let's talk about this. Did you know that having high emotional intelligence skills elevates your ability to lead and also really improves burnout rates? It lowers burnout rates, doesn't fix burnout. It's more on the preventative end. And what I really loved about this is it really aligns with the conference, right? Proactive medicine, right? This is about prevention. This is not about waiting for the bus to run you over and seeing how you do. This is about helping give you tools and resources so that you sidestep the bus, right? The bus is going to keep coming. We're just trying to get out of the way. Okay. So that's what we're going to focus on. So when you think about emotional intelligence, even before you read the what the official definition is, when you think about emotional intelligence, what do you think of? What comes to mind? Self-awareness. Absolutely. Anything else? Empathy. Did I hear maturity? Yeah. Anybody think of emotional intelligence as keeping your emotions under control? Calmness, right? I was talking with I was talking with a group at a healthcare facility, and they said emotional intelligence. No, we're good. Our emotions are good. And I'm like, we really need to talk, right? We often miss the critical aspect of emotional intelligence. So I wish I had this when I was leading hospitals and I knew more about it. It wasn't until I began to transition that I really did a deep dive into what emotional intelligence is. And once I did, I wanted to get on the rooftop and shout to everybody, people, we've all got to elevate our emotional intelligence. The benefits are tremendous. So, does anyone know how emotional intelligence was started? So, two psychologists, Peter Salovey and John Salovey and Peter Meyer, I think I always get those backwards, were painting a house. And they were talking about the intelligences and the analytics around intelligences and mainly IQ and things of that nature. And they were so surprised. The more they talked, they said, why is emotions not included on any of these scales and metrics? It is a critical aspect that drives what we do, how we do it, how we think. It should be included. So they got together and began to formulate some ideas and came up with the right white paper. And that was in 1990. And after that, then you had Daniel Goleman who came along and then furthered that research and really started to popularize emotional intelligence. So, what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is your ability to understand and recognize and manage your emotions. But that's not all. It's your ability to understand, recognize, and manage emotions in others. This is where I usually get, you mean I have to manage other people's emotions too? It's enough for me just to manage mine. The answer is yes, we do. And now here comes the operative part. Then, once you are able to understand, recognize, and manage emotions in yourself and others, you have to be able to use that information to get better outcomes, to build relationships. So it's not just a matter of knowing. It's a matter of what can you do with that information. That's what emotional intelligence is in its totality. It is actually a collection of skills, which I love because IQ we know is pretty fixed. By the time you go out of your, late teen years, IQ is pretty much done. EQ, on the other hand, can be developed. It can be enhanced. It can be improved. That gives all of us a wonderful opportunity. So I want to share with you the 4 buckets, and you'll notice that your results returned in 4 categories, and they correlate with these 4 categories here. We have in emotional intelligence what we call social competencies and personal competencies. Personal competencies include self, right? This is about you and how you manage yourself. So self-awareness is included here, and self-management is included here. How many of you, by show of hands, let me see how many of you are self-aware? Okay. That's pretty normal. So in a large study that they conducted of leaders, which is the hat that you all have on today, is that of a leader, they asked leaders the same question: are you self-aware? About 95% of leaders said, yes, I am self-aware. They then went through the process of the research around self-awareness. And what they actually found is only about 10% are actually self-aware. I'm not saying that applies to any of you. What I'm saying is that when it comes to self-awareness, we tend to believe that we're self-aware because we're looking through our own lens. So here's a question. What's your name, Sarah? Aaron. All right, Aaron. So let's say you and I are in the room together with a bunch of people that know you. And then you leave the room and I say, tell me about Aaron. Now I'm going to ask everyone in the room, you're going to leave, and I'm going to ask them to tell me about you. How likely is it that they're going to describe him the same way he describes him? Right. Right. So you've got a gap like this. True self-awareness is our ability to narrow that gap. It means that I understand myself, who I am, how I show up, but I also understand how I show up for others. I also understand if I walk in the room and everybody puts their head down or people are leaving, that's a clue, right? That's a sign. So we have to be self-aware. So that's the 1 bucket. I usually do this session in either a 4 or 8 hour day. So we're cramming it into 1 hour. So we're going to move very quickly. Self-management is your ability to self-regulate. This is your behavior. This is what you actually do, right? And this includes how you keep yourself motivated and all of those aspects. Your social competencies here are about social awareness, which is where empathy falls. Organizational awareness also falls there, right? So this is really important. Your ability to have a pulse and tone and to have a pulse and a good view of where other people are. How are they feeling? What's happening with them? That's a part of emotional intelligence. And then your ability to manage relationships. As a leader, this is critical. Relationship management includes your ability to impact and influence. Impact and influence. If you believe John Maxwell, he says that that leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. So if all of you in the room are leaders, what's your ability to positively influence? Not to direct, not to dictate, not to tell, not to demand, but to influence. It's a very, very different place to be. People respond differently to influence versus the others. So this is really important as you look at your scores that came back. I want you to take, if you take nothing away from our conversation, I want you to take this away. I looked at all of this and I said, it's way too complicated. How do I go in and speak to a group of leaders, physicians, and say, here's how you do emotional intelligence, and I got to go through 4 buckets and other competencies and all of these things. At the end of the day, you're going to be like, okay, whatever. You're going to go back to doing what you were doing. So here's what I want you to take away from this. Emotional intelligence, boiled down in its simplest form, is about two things. It's about what you know, and it's about what you do with what you know. It's about what you know and what you do with what you know. Because guess what? We all know a lot, but it doesn't matter what you know if it doesn't influence what you do. Okay? It doesn't matter what you know if it doesn't influence what you do. I know I shouldn't eat French fries. Doesn't stop me from eating them, right? So it doesn't matter what you know if it doesn't influence what you do. Our goal, your charge as a group of leaders, your mission, as they like to say for those Mission Impossible fans, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to elevate what you know, which is your awarenesses, so that it influences what you do, which is your management. Okay. So you're a collection. You are a collection of your IQ and your EQ. It doesn't matter if you know about EQ. Doesn't matter if you believe in EQ. You're using it every day. It's just like gravity. You don't have to believe in gravity, but if you go step out of a window, it'll show you, right? EQ is that way. It's always in action. My question is always, is it working for you or is it working against you? Are you using it intentionally or not? That is the question. So in order for you to really begin intentionally using emotional intelligence, you need to rewire yourself. You need to take control of your emotional power. And all of us are filled with emotional power that we tend to push aside because we think emotions are these pesky little things that are in our way. When really emotions are our greatest source of information and knowledge about self. So, if you choose to take control of your emotional power, I want to give you a technique that will help you do that. As I said, I started listening and learning about emotional intelligence. I thought, okay, we have done an awful job of talking about emotional intelligence to the point where it even feels threatening. My emotions are good. We don't need to talk about my emotions, right? Nobody wants to talk about their emotions, right? And I get it. However, for something that is absolutely essential to what we do every single day, I think we have to talk about it. But we've got to talk about it in a way that brings practical value. That's what I'm going to share with all of you today. I'm going to share a technique that I developed around emotional intelligence because it was way too complicated. So I'm going to give you 3 steps to help you elevate your emotional intelligence quickly and easily. I'm not sure how fast it'll be. You might need some practice because you all have been yourselves for a very long time. And just like any set of skills, you need to give yourself a little space and a little grace to learn this and to adjust to it and to do it well. So the UCR advantage are the 3 steps to helping you elevate your emotional intelligence and your ability to be an effective, high impact leader. Okay. The U stands for understanding. We have to expand our understanding, and this is essential. We'll talk about each of these a little bit more. Your C is how you communicate, and your R is what you actually do. So we talked about this in the fact that it doesn't matter what you know, awareness, right? Your knowing is your awarenesses, both your self-awareness and your social awarenesses. So what I've done is I've taken those 4 buckets, pulled it all apart and said, what are those 3 least common denominators involved here? And so we came up with the UCR advantage. So expanding your level of awareness of self and others then translates into the doing part, which is the C and the R in the formula, right? That's the management part that you do. So let's talk about this. Take a second to read this for me. And I want you to just react to it emotionally. Just give yourself permission to react to this statement. A powerful statement. Imagine if every person that you encountered you approached it from this lens. Doesn't matter who they are, doesn't matter if they do something for you or not, doesn't matter if they do something to you or not. This becomes your point of operation. So, how do we deepen our understanding? For each of the steps, I'm going to give you a short technique that you can use, and then it will be up to you to take it forward and to build it and begin using it so that it influences your world and your life. So, for understanding, we can inquire. Has anyone ever read the book, Change Your Questions, Change Your Life? It's an amazing book, a wonderful book for leaders. And it is about showing up with more questions than coming forward with a solution. We love solutions, right? In fact, that's what they pay us for. However, we can get to even better solutions when we ask better questions. So this begins by asking good questions of yourself, right? So deepening understanding, remember the understanding is the awareness, it's self-awareness and social awareness. So asking more questions. How am I feeling about this situation? When you truly are honest with how you feel, you can get to what's underneath. Okay, so maybe I'm pissed off. Why am I pissed off? There's something under that. It's not just that I'm pissed off for the sake of being pissed off, but maybe it is I expected something different. Maybe I'm disappointed. Maybe I had high hopes that something else was going to happen. Maybe I was frustrated about what's driving that, because there's something below the surface that we don't often take the time to explore that's driving how we feel. Where is it coming from? What are you feeling? What else could be happening? Here's a good one. Are my feelings the truth? Feelings are feelings, but they're not facts. Feelings aren't facts. They're just feelings. So it's up to us to explore those feelings, to really challenge them and to see if they're true. The guy that cut me off on the highway that I'm so pissed off at, I'm like, you saw me there. Did he? Do you know that for sure? Or is that just how I feel? I can feel a lot of things, but that doesn't make them fact. So it's up to us to challenge our feelings, to be sure that we're doing that work. And then we can start asking questions about others when we finish our own self inquiry. So, what's the other person? Who else is involved in this situation? Let's say I have a disagreement with the hospital CEO, and he and I have been clashing, or she and I have been clashing and butting heads lately. And I say, I can't believe they did this again. They know sort of where I'm coming from and what is all of that true? Right? And once I begin to deep dive on myself, now I need to step in the CEO's shoes, because this is no good if you only look from your lens. There are other people involved here. What's happening with them? Could the CEO be getting pressure from somewhere? Does he have stakeholders that are driving in one direction while you're trying to drive in another direction? Right? What's really going on here? We've got to do the work of asking the question. That's step one, deepening your level of understanding. Now, before you go to step two, there's something that we absolutely need to do. How many of you have played Monopoly and they say, do not pass go, or do not collect $200, whatever that phrase is? I always mess it up. But I need you, before you move forward, I really want you to make sure that you get the goal of what you want to happen. So let's go back to our situation with the CEO. And now I'm irritated and he's angry. And now we've got this whole thing going on. What is it I want to happen? What do I want to happen in this situation? What would be the best possible outcome? You need to figure that out, because what happens is we jump from step one to step two without doing this important step, and it goes off the rails because you have not set a goal. So I'm going to set a goal. The relationship with the CEO, I need that to get better. I want us to have a good collaborative working relationship, because that's in the best interest of our patients, of our team. That's what I want to happen. So now that I can use that as a goal, and that then becomes my North Star and how I navigate forward. We get into a lot of trouble when we don't go through this step of making sure that we identify what we want to happen. Right? As a chief nursing officer, I would coach people all the time. I'd counsel people. I'd write people up, do all of those things. Going into every one of those sessions, I had to know what the goal was. Is the goal to, this is a great, great person that I have on my team. I just need to manage some behaviors. Or is this a person that I think is not a good fit for my team? Those are two very different goals. Hence, the conversation that follows is two different conversations, right? So when we understand the goal, we can manage what happens next. Step number 2, now that you've got your goal, so you've expanded your understanding, you have a goal, now we need to move into communication. I love this quote. You cannot not communicate. Everything you do is communication, right? You can sit quietly, you can fold your arms, you can put your head down, you can turn the other way when I'm approaching. All of that is communication and therefore information for the other person. So let's talk about communication. So let's go back to the CEO. So now I know I have a goal that we want to improve our relationship. Now I need to communicate in alignment with that goal. See, we don't just communicate to communicate. We are communicating in emotional intelligence. We are communicating in alignment with our goal and our deepened level of understanding. So now I'm going to use some communication techniques. You can use others. There are many, many types of communication techniques. I use one that I call batons, because I like the idea of a handoff. Communication is, in fact, a communication between two people and an exchange of information. So I like the idea of handing off here. So for batons, you want to communicate in a way that has these elements: builds relationships, actively listens, has a tone that's appropriate and sincere, open and receptive. Your nonverbals are aligned. So if I go into the CEO's office and I say, all right, we need to work this out. What's wrong with that? Right? Automatically, what do you think he's thinking? We're not really going to work this out. Right? I know that's what you said, but that's not. So here's another really good one that you'll be able to relate to. Your significant other says to you, I'm not angry. Right? Huge mismatch between tone, body language, and words. When there is a mismatch between body language, tone, and words, people will believe what they see and not what you say. Your words become this much of the meaning, right? Words are, and they say anywhere, words are only approximately 7% of the meaning when we are communicating and expressing. So it's important to know you've got to align all of these. It doesn't matter if you go through step 1, you deepen your understanding, you set the goal, but then you get to step 2 and your communication is not aligned. So now chaos can reign because we are out of alignment. So let's go to step number 3. Communication that builds trust and respect must be followed by aligned action. This is the last step in the process, but it is critical. You can do step 1 and step 2, but if you don't follow through and do something that supports that goal that we established, what have you really done? I'll give you a famous example I like to use in this one. So everybody in here knows Jay-Z and Beyonce. Okay. Jay-Z and Beyonce, big power couple, right? So they're together. There's a shared understanding there about who they are, what they want, and what they want to present to the world as a couple. United front. Great. We're in this for the long term. We're in it to win it together, babe. Cool. So then we go to the next step and we say, the goal, they've got the understanding. They know what the goal is. Communication, I'm assuming, because I don't know what they say to each other, right? But I'm going to assume that it's in alignment with the understanding. I'm going to assume it's, I'm with you, babe. We got this, right? We're on the right track. Yeah, it's all good. Love you, smooches, all of that. But then we get to the action. And that matters. So what happens? Jay-Z cheats on Beyonce. We were doing good in step 1 and step 2. And how do we know this? They talk about it. This is all public. You just pull it up on YouTube or Dr. Google or whatever. It's all out there. But I think it's a great illustration of what happens when the alignment breaks. right? So, what is your understanding? What is the goal? Are you communicating in alignment? And then, does your action support that alignment? I had a call from a lady one day who was, I was coaching her, and she said, My husband and I can't do it anymore. We're arguing all the time. It's so frustrating." And I said, "Okay, what do you want?" Right? Because I'm going, if you want out, that's one conversation. If you want to try to save your relationship, that's a whole different conversation. She said, "Well, I want to save it." And I said, "Okay, great." So I said, "So tell me about your communication." And she starts with, no, 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 back up. Tell me about your communication. Because, see, it's easy for us to go to the other person. Emotional intelligence is only about you. That's the beautiful part about it. The world can stay as it is, and you can change, and you can have a significant impact in how you feel, your level of empathy, and your ability to effectively lead. So, after we talked about her communication, she said, "Well, he does this and leaves his socks on the floor or whatever, and then I fuss, and then we fuss back and forth." I said, "Well, have you considered not fussing?" She kind of made the face that you just made. She's like, "Oh, well, you said you don't want to argue. Why are you arguing? You don't have to argue because just because someone throws a ball at you doesn't mean you have to catch it, right?" Alignment between these three is critical. Understanding, communication, and response, right? When you align all three, there are really wonderful and positive things that can happen. When it is not aligned, it's not a judgment or an indictment against you. It's simply an opportunity to step back and look at the process to see if you can do something a little bit differently. So, how do you take the action? Well, I don't know what action you need to take because we don't script things. You're a professional, you're in the moment and in the situation. You'll have to make that decision. So what we did though is we wanted to give a series of options and things that high EQ leaders do on a regular basis. So it's called 18 Habits of Highly Emotionally Intelligent Leaders. You don't have to worry about it because if you complete your evaluation that I'm going to ask you to complete in just a minute, it's going to download a copy of this for you so that you can have an opportunity to look through it in detail and really think about these behaviors and how are they aligned with you, right? Are you showing up? I think about that CEO situation and I think about, are you showing up as adaptable, right? Are you showing up in a nimble nature? Are you showing up as the heroic agitator? You want to shake things up a bit, but in a positive way that people can get on board. You can get the buy in so you can all move forward together. There's always a way that we do things when we are operating in that high EQ state. And that is the goal for us. So let me check my time. Okay. So I just have a few scenarios here. We don't really have to walk through these because I want to leave some time for questions. But I just want you to know that every situation in your life, you can use this UCR advantage as a starting point to open up the discussion. It's not magic, it will not solve everything. But what we're really talking about is your ability to lead. So, what's the connection between EI and burnout? It is getting you back to humanity. It is getting back to that place where the people that you interact with, you do so in a way where you care about them, they care about you. Yeah, the system's crazy. Can't do much about that. But what can we do for each other within the span and the sphere in which we operate? We can care for each other, we can support each other. When my colleague says that, "Oh my gosh, I am just up to here, I can't take it anymore," we don't say, "Oh, I know what you mean." Right? That doesn't help. That's not caring, right? But what is more helpful is an empathic response where we're finding out what's really going on and is there something that we can do to help or support. That caring for each other, that connection is what's driving the research data that says that emotional intelligence helps to prevent burnout because you feel supported. Burnout just isn't about long hours. It's about feeling unsupported. It's about feeling uncared for. All of those are elements of burnout. So I want you to know that start practicing and you might get a little bit of Are you okay? But that's a good thing because that means you're headed in a little bit of a different direction. Means you're trying something new. I don't know about you, but I don't want you to leave to chance your mental, emotional well-being to some system that we're hoping gets fixed sometime soon. I hope that it does. But the research indicates that emotional intelligence can be an effective prevention strategy. Remember, we're talking about sidestepping the bus. The bus is going to keep going. Maybe that'll be a visual that y'all will remember, right? This bus is coming at you, and you're just going to kind of get out the way a little bit. It's going to keep coming. That's okay. That's not within your control. What's in your control is your ability to step out of the way, right? Leverage other people around you, leverage your resources so that they can help you and you can create an impact. I work with organizations around the world. One of my favorite organizations that I work with is in Colombia. And this group of physicians have absolutely embraced the idea of a culture that is compassionate and caring for everyone in the culture. It's pretty incredible what to see what's happening and what they're doing. I started the conversation by asking you to just open up a little bit, right? I know you all are skeptics, right? There's a healthy level of skepticism with physicians, as there should be. But there is opportunity and there is hope here. So I'm going to, before I wrap up and give you the last little piece for you, please complete the survey. I need your feedback as I continue to do this work. We want to make sure that it's impactful for everyone that we're speaking to, everyone that we serve. And as I mentioned, when you submit your survey, you're going to get a color copy of the 18 habits. Take a look at those habits. I also have a set of activities. Like if you don't want to make up activities to play high EI games with your staff and really do things to increase the emotional quotient in those that you work with, you can always let me know and I can share with you some of the tools that we use to make it fun, to lighten it up, to get people thinking about how they're acting and behaving and their level of understanding and awareness. So I invite you to definitely do that. The survey is super short. It's like 4 questions or something, I think. And then that will open up. Give you just a minute to do that. And then I'll finish with my last thought here and we'll wrap up. Get it? You all are incredibly smart and talented, and you're also very, very human. In medical school, how much time did you spend learning how to care for yourself? None. So we've created this system where physicians are incredibly skilled at caring for people, and we need that. But guess what? I also need you to care about you. I need you to take care of you. because you can't take care of others if you're not taking care of you. It looks very, very different when you are serving from a place of stress, frustration, and overwhelm versus serving from a place where you feel whole and supported. Those are two different things. That is possible for you. And because we are all human, that means we have blind spots. So I want to just ask you quickly, based on what I shared with you about understanding communication and response, where do you think your greatest opportunity is? Raise your hand if you think your greatest opportunity is in deepening your level of understanding before you move forward into situations. Yeah. This is a big one because it's easy for us to go very, very quickly and we move to the next thing before we've really done a bit of processing to go a little bit deeper. I mentioned that book earlier, Change Your Questions, Change Your Life. If anyone is interested in that, it's like a fable kind of book, but it's a really, really good book. How many of you believe that your blind spot is in communication? Yeah. How many believe your blind spot is in the after action, in the response and what you do? Yeah, thank you for that. Awareness is the key, right? This is not an indictment. You don't need to judge it. You don't need to beat yourself up. You don't need to ask, why didn't I? None of that matters. What matters is here today and now and what you do moving forward and your willingness. I encourage you all to go learn a lot more about EQ, EI, not just about it, but how to apply it. That's what's most important to me. So there's a lot that can happen when you tighten up those blind spots a bit and move forward. So they say that nothing changes until we do, right? Nothing changes until we do. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Your external expression of leadership, of high emotional intelligence begins inside. It begins with the work that you do internally. Your thoughts, your feelings, emotions, all of that powers what you say and what you do. So, given all of that, I invite all of you to really take ownership and control. The system is the system. That's all well. But I care a lot about every single one of you. And I thank you for the work that you do. And I want to see you begin to elevate yourself by taking care of yourself. So that's it for me. My name is Rhonda Williams. Pleasure to be here with you.
Test. Questions? Comments?
Do you do any podcasts or anything like that? You're so incredibly inspirational.
Oh, thank you for that. So I have a show that I do called the Coffee with Rhonda Show.
Oh, yeah.
It is a leadership show. You can find it on YouTube. It's coffeewithrhondashow.com. What we do every week is we bring on a different leader and we talk about different aspects of leadership. And so it's a bit all over the board, right? Because we want to focus on what's important to the leaders out there today. But yeah, we do that show on a regular basis. Thank you.
If there's another question,
I'm throwing to you.
How do you approach a person if you're trying to change, but they won't change? They won't move. You're trying, but they won't move.
I love that question. I love that question so much because I can speak to it not only from an emotional intelligence standpoint, but from a professional standpoint. So I had this situation at my workplace. I was the chief nursing officer and I had my director of quality management, and we were like this. We were just kind of like two rams butting heads because in my view, she didn't recognize her lane, right? And she didn't know how to step into my lane in a way that was more collaborative. So we were constantly at odds. So my CEO hired an executive coach and we had the opportunity to all get some coaching. So the coach came and she sat down with me and she said, so tell me what's going on. So I start telling her the story and I'm like, by the way, I'm good. Just please go fix her. Right? I'm good. Go fix her. And so I did that a couple of times and the coach said, okay, time out. We're not ever going to talk about her or anyone else. This is about you. This is about you allowing her to push your buttons. This is about you reacting to her. This is about you making a choice unconsciously or not, you're making that choice. You have to decide what you want in this situation, and you have to decide to be different. I was so pissed. I was so pissed. But you know what? I followed the advice. I decided that they were right. I didn't have to react to her, right? That was a choice I was making. And I stopped doing it, and we changed the entire situation, and she never changed.
So another one.
Hi,
Hi.
I work mainly remotely and have to go around patient with my CEO, my supervising physician, everything along that line is either by email, text. And so any issues that arise, do you have any suggestions with communication, digital communication? Because almost all of ours is digital communication, and I feel like tone can be inferred.
Yeah. Really, really a great point. Thank you so much for bringing that up, because digital communication is a big part of our world today. And a lot can be lost in translation. Um, if you're doing a text, you can maybe do some little emojis and all of that. That's all great. But typically in emails, we can lose a lot. So I am what we call a head person, right? I like to think and then just kind of go from my head and do. I have learned to back up in my email. I'll start writing it and say, I really need that report from you. You know, it was due yesterday. And then I erase that whole thing and I back up a bit. And I say, okay, what is it I'm trying to accomplish? What do I want? What's my relationship with this person? And I'll start differently. And I'll say, you know, hey, Nancy, good morning. I hope that your weekend went really well. Things have been really busy lately. I can tell things are busy because that report that we were gonna that you were gonna turn in yesterday, I haven't received it yet. Is there something I can do to help? So I'm not going, why didn't you turn it in? Where is it? Right? I'm really careful of my tone, particularly in email, because it can be inferred. So I take every precaution and effort. At the point that we get to a third email, I'm picking up the phone. It's like stop the emails and pick up the phone, because now we've got this back and forth and back and forth. And there's some level of energy there that you can probably just dismiss if you pick up the phone and have a conversation. So I am very cautious. I also call people out a little bit, but I'll do it over the phone. Like if they send me a really ugly email, I'll say, hey, how are you? Good morning. I just got your email. I felt it felt a little bit cutting to me, right? That's probably not what you intended. And they go, oh, no. Didn't mean that. But if you don't let people know how they're coming across, how can they ever change? Right?
Great. We have one more question, then we're getting ready to break, and hopefully, Rhonda, you're going to be staying around.
Yeah.
Last question.
It's not a question, it's a comment. I am a psychiatrist. And this is what I tell my patients. It is a difficult path. You can never change other people's thinking or
Correct.
behavior. You can only change yours.
Correct.
And if the situation is difficult, don't change into a crisis. In a crisis, the only two things that you do, you fight or you run away.
Yeah.
And fighting is not necessarily physical.
Yeah.
Arguments.
Yeah.
So that's what I advise people. If the situation is difficult, pause. Take time.
Yeah.
Think.
I love that. Thank you for adding that, because that pause, I call it give yourself permission to pause. Right? We all think that we have to respond right away. Text messaging is the worst. You get a text and you think, I have to respond right. You don't. Give yourself a minute to pause, particularly if you feel triggered, right? But that's about awareness. When you are aware that you're triggered, now you can pause and do something. When you're not aware of it, then you just fire back, right? And now you've got this thing going back and forth in this negative energy. You can pause for a minute, but you said something else that's really important, and that is you can never make anyone else do anything. We're not doing anything to people with emotional intelligence. This is their choice. All I'm going to do is provide information, options, tools, and resources. You get to choose whether or not you actually use those. And that's for all of the patients as well. They get to make the choice. I can introduce it, and then they can choose. Now, I can help them, because forming habits is not easy, right? We've been doing the things that we do for a very long time. but they can make a choice and still slip backwards, and that's okay. We can continue to reinforce and help them move forward.
Quick comment. We've, at the home office, we've gone to a hybrid office after COVID. And so we're doing things remote a lot. And so we take, with a communication issue, we take sort of a layered approach. We have chat. So we chat a lot. Emails a little more detailed. But when the tone is not right or the message is not, you pick up the phone. Phone doesn't work. We get together, meet face to face. So it's sort of a layered approach to resolving communication.
It requires awareness, right? Once again, everything goes back to awareness, because you might have one member of the communication chain who feels it's fine.
That's right.
There's nothing going on. This is just a normal thing. And everybody else is going, what is happening? Right? So that person may not be aware. So again, everything begins with the awarenesses.